us. Thank you very much for liking what we are doing. Thank you very much for inspiring us to do more. In fact, we are so happy with these A to Z series that we've decided that we're going to keep doing different A to Z series from INSTUCEN, and we're going to populate this channel, and we're going to give you some very, very interesting things to discuss in the coming months. So today is the alphabet M, and it's everybody's favorite goddess. It is Mahishasuramardini today. So Mahishasuramardini, or Durga, or the one who cannot be conquered, is one of the most popular deities all over India, especially in Eastern India, but very, very popular all over India. Known as Mahishasuramardini because she was created specifically, says the legend, to vanquish the demon Mahishasura, the buffalo demon. She is the supreme embodiment of the goddess in the Indian pantheon. She is an amalgam of Shiva and Vishnu coming together, yet she is Parvati, and her arms are embellished with the weapons of all the gods. It is mainly the male gods whose weapons she carries. She is the most popular worshipped goddess, perhaps, along with Kali, anywhere in India. And she is very, very popular with women and with men. She is also the supreme embodiment of the battle goddess for most of the clans. And for Hindus and Hinduism, she is virtually the Athena of the Indian pantheon. So she's usually shown riding a lion or a tiger, very much what the goddess Parvati rides. And she is usually shown multi-armed. Anywhere from 8 to 18 arms are very, very common. And there are other permutations and combinations also, though there are a few 4-arm combinations. It's usually 8 and more that we see her in, wielding all kinds of weapons. Her main weapon, of course, is the Trishul, or the trident of Shiva. And this is what she uses to actually kill the demon Mahishasura in the end of this long battle that they fight, where he transforms into his buffalo form. And then when she's vanquishing him and he's trying to escape by transforming into his human form, that's when she finally nails him down. So she is the supreme embodiment of battle. She is the unconquerable goddess. And she's usually shown locked in battle with Mahishasura, victoriously vanquishing him. Though there are images of the goddess Durga without Mahishasura, there usually will be a small buffalo component or a pair of horns that you will see. In Eastern India, especially in Assam, Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa, she is perhaps the most important deity, more important than any of the other deities. And during the Navratri celebrations leading to Dasera, this is the period known as Puja or Pujo in that region. And this is a very, very important festival, perhaps the most important, single most important festival in Eastern India. And you will see pandals coming up all over padas, or what are called localities, and important maidans, and they will vie for each other in the kind of imagery that they can create. And the goddess is worshipped from the 6th day onwards, Shashti, when she comes down. She descends from heaven to her maternal home on earth, and she brings her family with her. So to the Bengalis, this is a very, very, and the Oriyas and the Assamese, this is a very, very important moment when the daughter comes back home to her maternal house with her children. So she brings her 4 children, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Ganesha, and Kartikeya with her. And they're usually seen flanking her on the pandal. And as I said, there is very, very elaborate depictions of her. She is worshipped from the 6th to the 10th day. In the 10th afternoon, she is taken down for Visarjan to the closest water body that you can find. It might be a pond, it might be the river, it might be the seashore. And she is given a send-off. She goes back home on the day of Dasera, which also happens to be the day commemorating the day she killed the buffalo demon on the 10th day of battle. So this is very, very deeply symbolic. The Devi, as she is very often just casually called, and when they say Devi in Eastern India, they mean Durga and they mean Mahishasuramardini, okay, is the supreme embodiment of everything. She is the central focus of the Shakta cult, and there is an enormous body of literature written about her, around her, and about her legends and her tales. The Bidai of the goddess is a very, very touching, very emotional ceremony. And she's known to us all the way all over Southeast Asia and is a very important part of Buddhist and Jain pantheons. She's also a very important part of art. We see her in paintings, from the miniature paintings to Raja Ravi Verma. We see her embodied in all kinds of folk paintings. We see her in modern art. There are a number of comics about her, comic books based on her, both from the Amar Chitra Katha and more recent traditions. There are graphic novels about her. There are entire exhibitions of paintings that are done by painters where she is the central theme. Dokra art, which is the metal art of the tribal people of Eastern India, makes very many different forms of her. And we find her in clay, in terracotta, and even in the pith of the shola tree. So this is some of the earliest imagery that we have of the goddess Durga. These are two images from the caves at Aihole, from the temples at Aihole. And this is the goddess Durga on the left-hand side killing the buffalo demon. You can see her holding the neck up, and you can see the trident upheld in one hand, and you can see the various weapons hammering him down. On the right-hand side, you see a humaniform Mahishasura, a more a buffalo-headed humaniform Mahishasura fighting the goddess. The goddess rides a typical South Indian lion with a curly mane and is accompanied by all the Ganas who are going into battle with her. And of course, this is in her fierce form. And you see the umbrella bearer holding an umbrella over her and an umbrella bearer holding an umbrella over Mahishasura, because ultimately they're both royalty. So she's represented in all kinds of styles and from all parts of the country. From north to south and east to west, we have images of the goddess. And this is one of my favorite ones on the right-hand side, where you have the goddess's lion biting Mahishasura in the bum. And that's from Rani Ki Vav. And amongst the very many images, you have the Chola style images and you have the Eastern style images. On the left-hand side is a very, very beautiful image in the Pala style, perhaps one of the most beautiful Pala images that I have seen. And this one was auctioned a few years ago by Christie's. In the center, you have a beautiful image of Mahishasuramardini in the Parmara style, or maybe a slightly later style, depending on what you like to. You can see Mahishasura transforming in these images into a human form when the goddess is sticking him with the trident. On the right-hand side is a very, very beautiful, very little known image from the Chakreshwar Tirth at Nalasopara, which is embodied, which is kind of entrenched into the cement of a modern temple frame. So you have her from the Chola period. So this is a Mahishasuramardini icon of the Chola period. And you can see her over here in her fighting embodiment. In the center, we have a beautiful example of the Hoysala style. And once again, the same image, beautifully cowed buffalo at the bottom. And a very imaginatively placed buffalo in the image that we see from the Chandela style. So that's a Chandela image from the Khajuraho Museum. And it's a very, very beautiful sculpture. And you can see the way she has turned him around and is stepping on him. So the goddess is always shown with her left foot on the buffalo and her right hand raised up as she is transfixing him with her trident. So very, very much a part of various different schools of art. On the right-hand side, of course, you have a beautiful print by Raja Ravi Verma. On the left-hand side, you have a classic miniature. And what I really love about this is that it's done in the Rajput style, and the goddess is actually wearing chainmail armor as she goes into battle. So it's very important that there are so many things that you can see reflected. You can see the typical khadga sword that is used by the Rajputs in her upraised hand on the extreme left top. You can see, of course, the chakra of Vishnu and the trident and all of those things. But it's so interesting to see that there are direct representations from the periods in which the image is made of the kind of weapons that are actually used also in the period that we are displaying her image in. So similarly, on the right-hand side, when you see the Raja Ravi Verma image, you see the sword in her hand is a very late Mughal / Maratha era sword as opposed to the Rajput era sword that you see. So there's a beautiful contrast that you can see in these two images. We know her from far and wide, and there is a beautiful image of her from Thailand on the left-hand side, and images from Indonesia next to that. Okay, and next to that, there are two beautiful Khmer images. And the Khmer images are very unique. She's usually shown forearmed. Interestingly, the one on the left shows her with all the attributes of Vishnu. So she has Shankha Chakra Gada, but you see the buffalo horns that she's standing on. On the right-hand side, of course, sadly, the image is damaged. So you don't know what all the hands were holding, but you can see the buffalo cow very, very clearly on the pedestal upon which she is standing. So there is a very, very interesting journey that Mahishasuramardini takes. These are some beautiful examples of Dokra work, very traditional on the top left and more modern on the right and the bottom left. And you see the entire pantheon as is shown during puja, which we will see a little later in the Dokra art. And you see Ganesha and Lakshmi and Saraswati and Kartikeya flanking the goddess. And you see the goddess in the center with Mahishasur under her. And of course, there's the more artistic one over here on the right, where it is just the horns and the head that is shown, and the goddess is shown standing above the head. He's seen in folk art across the country. From Bengal, of course, very, very popular, very, very big in all the Bengali folk styles that we have. We have her in the Madhubani style. We see her from southern India. We see her in the Tanjore style. We see her from eastern India. We see her from western India as Amba, as she's often worshipped. So sometimes the lion, sometimes the tiger. In fact, more often the tiger in later representation and in folk representation, and well, the lion also in other cases. So these are typical images that we have of the Durga Puja pandals and the goddess at Durga Puja. So what you see on the left-hand side, the two images are what are called Ek Chala, which means under one umbrella, you see all of them together. And that's one of the most traditional styles. What you see in the center are individual images. The images are beautifully decorated. Workshops make these images months in advance, very much like the Ganesh festival in Western India. There is an enormous interplay of women. You can see women blowing the conch. They perform various rituals in front of the Devi. And in fact, on the last day, before she leaves, there is a very interesting event called Sindur Khela, where the women play a kind of holi with sindur and cover their faces and their heads. And they play with her before she goes back. So on the top right-hand side is Pith or Shola, and this is called Dhaker Shaj. And this is a very, very popular way of making the representation in white, which you can also see on the bottom left-hand side, though it looks a little brown. And the Shola or Pith images are also very, very popular images of the goddess. Many households have been performing Durga Puja for over 100 years on their own premises. So there is what is known as the Thakurbarir Pujo, which are at the various houses, the various Thakurs all over Bengal. And of course, there are the Sarvajanik Pujas, or the Sarvajanik Puja as it's called, which is held along with the people in various different localities, communities, clubs will come together to have the puja of the mother goddess. And there are all kinds of different representations of her. And of course, Ganesha, Kartikeya, Lakshmi, and Saraswati are always with her when she comes down to visit her maternal home. So very, very popular comic strips. Tales of Durga, the Amarchitra Katha is kind of an epic that is eternal. But we also have Vimanika comics now coming out with their own modern version. So Karanveer's Durga is out, and it's also a very, very popular comic. We also have her in a lot of modern art. So the theme of Durga vanquishing evil, the powerful force of nature vanquishing evil is a very important impetus, which is represented by a lot of artists. So we have a lot of artists talking about Durga in very many different ways. So, well, she is the eternal mother goddess. Thank you very much for being with us. And being here on this live with us. Uh, these are our handles: INSTUCEN at Twitter, INSTUCEN at Insta, INSTUCEN Trust on Facebook, and INSTUCEN Trust on LinkedIn. Do come and follow our series. We also have the INSTUCEN Summer School program on, which is on for a limited time only, and where for 500 rupees, you have access to dozens of courses that INSTUCEN has put out in the last year of this pandemic. So please log in, please have a look at the courses we have, and we promise you that no one will give you this much for this little. So thank you very much for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Tomorrow is the alphabet N, and it will be Narasimha, the man lion. Thank you very much. Stay safe.